Hey there, fellow cultists. This is DM Nell, and I'm back with another Shadow of the Demon Lord talk. And today, this is episode number 81. 81, all right. Coming up on 100. That's pretty crazy. So, what should I do for 100? Don't know. Have to think about that. I still got 19 to go before I get there. So, if you guys have any ideas, and let me know. Should probably do something interesting for 100, right? Not that all of my videos aren't interesting, but you know, something more interesting. Take it to 11, right? Okay, so yeah, I want to talk about Uncertain Faith. This is about one of the only core supplements that I haven't talked about yet. And I wanted to spend a little time on that. Before I do, let me go ahead and do my usual reminders that I need your support to make my videos more relevant on YouTube. And the way to do that is a couple different ways. You can watch my videos, of course. You can like my videos or dislike, whichever. I think end result's the same. If it gets attention, it makes the video more prominent. And finally, if you subscribe to my videos, then not only will it help me make my videos more prominent and help hopefully others that are looking for games like this to be able to find Shadow of the Demon Lord content. And not only that, but it helps me get more subscribers to hopefully unlock more abilities and capabilities in YouTube, so I can do some more fun stuff with these videos. But anyway, so yeah, help me out if you can. Otherwise, just feel free to watch and provide me any comments if you like my content, or if you have anything you'd like to add to it. And feel free to add comments to the video, and maybe I'll address your comments in future videos, or maybe not. I don't know. I kind of play this by ear. So anyway, so Uncertain Faith. Yeah, this is a video that I've been putting off because Uncertain Faith is not one of those supplements that I use a lot. And the reason that I haven't used it a lot is because a lot of the information is already in the core rulebook. So a lot of the faiths are already there. And if I need to refer to a faith, I can just go there. I'm not usually a player in Shadow of the Demon Lord. In fact, I've only been a player once in a Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign. And I played a spellcaster, but not a cleric. So religion isn't really my jam in gameplay or in real life, for that matter. But at any rate. So yeah, I mean, I got the supplement. It's packed full of good information. It's a combination of a lore book and a rule book. So it's got a nice balance of all that stuff. But I really haven't had to reference it too much. Now, I have been looking through it recently because one of my players decided to be a priest of witchcraft, and I haven't really read a whole lot about witchcraft. And there's a section on witchcraft in here, which was very helpful in educating me on how witchcraft plays a role in the lore of the game. So this book. Yeah, really? This book is full of all the faiths that are relevant in the core setting, which is, of course, the continent of Rule. And it's really, if you're playing a cleric, it's really a great supplement. As a GM or a DM, it's also a good supplement just to, again, get more information on the faiths for you to help support those players of yours that are playing clerics or characters that have some sort of faith magic associated with them. So, this is a Robert J. Schwall production, and so you can expect the same level of quality. And you've got all kinds of great art in here. Art directions by Kara Hamilton and Robert Schwab. Editing Scott Fitzgerald Gray. Proofreading Kara Hamilton and Kim Mohan. Layout and graphic design, Kara Hamilton. Cover is Mirko Paganisi, one of my favorite artists. Interior illustrations by Biagio. Maybe I should look in my book. Let's see here. Biagio de Alessandro, maybe. Luan Dixon, Olga Drebus, Kim Van Duen, Jack Kaiser, Matthew Kaminsky, Mirko Paganisi, Svetoslav Petrov, I know I've butchered that name before, and Audrey Vasilchenko. Great names. I tell you, I love those names. All right, so clearly a cast of many alumni to the Shadow of the Demon Lord product. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on this book simply because it would take many hours to do so. There's a lot of information in this book, but I'm just going to give you an overview and let you decide whether this book is worthwhile. Again, I don't do reviews, so I'm not going to tell you buy this book or don't buy this book. I'm just going to talk about what I like about the book and what I feel like is good to know and good uses for this book. And then you can decide if you want to go buy it. You know, you can, and if you do, you can do it like Drive-Thru RPG, I believe, has a print-on-demand option or the PDF option. So I prefer both, actually. So let's see what we got here. Introduction talks about religion as being part of the world, myth and religion. There's a lot of lore that goes into religion, but I should probably give a spoiler alert. So when you're talking about religion and lore in this world, you can't help but talk about where it comes from. And some of this information probably should not be available to people who are playing in a Shadow of the Demon Lord campaign, simply because, you know, some of this stuff is, it might shatter your faith. So anyway, spoiler alert, if you're a player in a game, watch at your own risk. All right, so anyway, religion is essentially in this game is a man-made construct. Gods don't exist in this world. And there's really only one godlike being, and that is the Demon Lord, who used to be God, the God of all things. It was all things. It was the universe. It was a universe. It was a solitary single entity. Now, I've already gone through the creation in other videos where the Demon Lord got kind of lonely, so he split himself in two, created the demiurge, and by splitting himself in two, he basically expanded the universe, making a gap and creating the void. And then the demiurge split itself up into little genies, and that's how the multiverse was created. So you got the void, you got all these other universes that the genies went and created and stole matter from both the demiurge and the Demon Lord, who was God, and then that pissed the God off and made him become the Demon Lord. So that's the creation actuality for this campaign setting. Very condensed version. So there are no gods. The only gods are the Demon Lord, and everything else is an offshoot of the Demon Lord. Now there are very powerful godlike beings, and so those things, those entities exist. Not only in the void, but also in the various universes that were created by the genies. And so these godlike entities do exist, but they aren't necessarily gods. They're just very powerful entities. Sometimes they can be worshipped, and that could create a godlike relationship with the mortal beings that worship them, which I'll get to in a second. But they are not gods per se. They are not creators themselves. The only creators were the genies. and the only thing that was created from was the demon lord before he became the demon lord. Okay, so anyway, so religion is basically a man-made construct. So, by man-made, I mean that the faith of man created the religion, but that the impetus for that actually came from another source, which I'll talk to in a second. So in this campaign setting, we're talking about the religion of rule on the planet Earth, and not in the wide multiverse, because all those can vary. But just in this particular campaign setting, there really wasn't any religion when all first started. There was just the immortals, and then there were the first people. And so the first people essentially began to venerate the immortals. And this was perpetuated by the fact that one of the immortals, Diabolus, kind of went out into the first peoples and started touting this God talk, of these entities such as the Queen of Summer and Father Winter and Father Death and all of these powerful Fey entities, lords and ladies. They were immortals. They did have significant power, but they were not gods. But by Diabolus going out there and talking these things up, and in fact talking himself up as the devil, essentially, that fostered a belief system in the first people, and it created the old faith. And through the worship of the first people, the power of the worship interacted with the field of magic that permeates this universe and all universes, and it essentially fed the power of this faith into these focal points, which were these people, these beings that Diabolus was talking up. And of course, Diabolus was in disguise. He was walking around the first people as one of them, and talking about, hey, have you heard about the Summer Queen? How awesome she is! Hey, have you heard about Father Death? You better fear him. Don't fear the Reaper. Hey, the World Mother. Yeah, she's awesome. She makes the world go round and all that great stuff. Plants grow and all. The Horned King, watch out for him. All the beasts come from that dude. So anyway, Diabolus is out there talking all this stuff, and all this worship power goes flowing into these entities and starts to warp them into the images that these people have conjured up of how these people should look. So, the Queen of Summer, she becomes like this beautiful summer, like redhead with all this power. And then Father Death becomes a skeletal, walking giant skeleton with, a scythe. And the Horned King becomes this big bestial, horned, badass. And so on and so forth. Diabolus himself becomes this giant, demonic-looking devil, essentially, with huge horns and red skin and cloven hooves and all that. And so all this imagery came from the worship of the first people, and these Fey lords and ladies became gods. Not really gods, but they just became godlike, because all the power of this faith increased their own personal power to the point where they were way beyond everybody else that practiced magic. So that's how religion was born. And ever since then, all the various religions that have come up in the world have sprung from various different beliefs that have just grown out of the various civilizations that have come and gone on rule. So that's basically these, the first couple of pages of this book talks about that. It also talks about servants of the gods, holy sites, and how you might go about using this book. So the first chapter talks about the old faith, and it kind of goes into, what the old faith's all about. They're all about groves, standing stones, lodges, and it has all the gods listed here, and it allows you to be a priest of the old faith, and you can focus on any one of those old gods, such as Father Death. You could be a priest of Father Death. You could be a priest of the Horned King, and all of the Maiden in the Moon, all of these Fae gods of the old faith, you can be a priest for, and it gives you stats, game stats for creating a character for being a priest of these gods. Revel is another one of them. There's the Queen of Summer, the Seer, and of course the World Mother. So that's chapter 1. And the Old Faith being probably number 2 in the pantheons of the world. Number 1 currently being the Church of the New God. But the Old Faith is kind of dying away, being replaced by the Church of the New God. And so, but it's still a pretty popular faith system. The next one is the Honored Dead, and the Honored Dead is the faith that is that the dwarves of the world use, and basically dwarves don't believe in gods. They acknowledge that there are gods, such as Grimnir and the dark gods especially, but they don't worship them. In fact, they really don't like them. The gods have not been kind to the dwarves. In fact, Grimnir actually created the dwarves from giants and did so as a punishment. So Grimnir is not a good role model for the dwarves. So instead, the dwarves honor their ancestors. So as the dwarves die off, their ancestry becomes important to them, and they venerate their dead as their gods, basically. So the Honored Dead is the name of their faith, and it goes through and talks about what that means to the dwarves. Days of remembrances are listed here, of course, and being a priest of the Honored Dead. Information for how to do that. Chapter 3 is Witchcraft, like I mentioned earlier. It talks about what witches are, and contrary to what popular lore is, and in fact this picture up here kind of perpetuates the bad side of witchcraft. Normal witchcraft is not bad. In fact, witches and witchcraft use magic to try to heal the world. And they do so through natural forces. But there are those that become corrupted by the power and become dark witches or black witches. And so those black witches are the ones that we typically think of when we think of witches. The ones, wearing all black robes that, with a green skin and crooked nose and all that stuff. Those are the bad witches, but the good witches look like everybody else. And, they're like Wiccans, in today's world. They're not evil. They're just nature people, crystal holding, pentagram wearing, very spiritual folk. And that's what witchcraft is here. So it talks about that in detail. Talks about what covens are. Covens are interesting because when witches decide to work together, they work in groups, but they have to work in groups of specific numbers because numbers have power. And if a coven does not have a number of members that is a power number, then it can't be a coven, and so it expands. And it talks about the power numbers being 3, 5, 7, or 13. So a coven has to have at least 3 members, or at least 7 members, or at least 13 members. Cannot have an even number of witches. And so when they lose a member and they have an even number, then they disband until they can reform a proper coven. Talks about their cottages being a source of their power, and a witch knows when they go into a coven, or they know when they go into a witch's cottage. They can sense the witch's power there. And then it talks about the suspicion that witchcraft has always fostered among non-witches. It also talks about how the witches are particularly picked on by the Church of the New God. So the New God priests and inquisitors really kind of go out of their way to try to stamp out witchcraft. really for no good reason. They just think it's bad. So being a priest of a witch is listed here. And then it goes on to chapter 4, which is the new God. Probably the longest chapter and most detailed, again, because it's the most popular religion here. But it talks about the beginnings of the church, how Astrid, the savior figure of this religion, came to prominence, and how she became basically a martyr, and her death essentially caused the religion to explode into the world and become the dominant religion. But the interesting thing about the Church of the New God is it's totally a fraud. It is totally a construct created by Diabolus again. And Diabolus is like I think he's probably the most influential character in all of the lore of this world. And I say that because he has done more to change the flow of history in this world than I think anybody, including the Witch King. So not only did he create the old faith, but he was also instrumental in creating the cycle of life, which the Church of the New God is all about. The cycle of life being the mortal creatures and recycling their souls, rather than allowing the souls to just be reborn into the world, retaining all of the memories from their past lives. Diabolus and the rest of his Fae lords and ladies and the old faith gods came up with a plan to basically launder souls, to erase memories, so that the mortals would not become in time more powerful than the immortals. That was Diabolus's idea. And then once he got all that going and he saw the direction that the world was headed, he decided, you know what? Screw the old faith. I'm in it for myself, and I see where the world's headed. I'm going to create a new faith. And this is going to be funny as hell, because I'm still going to be the devil, but I'm also going to be the new God. And I'm going to get double the worship, and I'm going to be getting all kinds of power from this. So he goes out there, and he is the vision that Astrid sees. And he comes to her as this divine entity, and he starts telling her all these things, and she sees them in her dreams, and she writes all this stuff down, and she creates the religion essentially for the Church of the New God, and she starts talking about it. Now, of course, at the time there was a faith called the Order of Light, and she was a part of that faith. But once she got the new word, she started pushing the faith of the New God, which pissed a lot of people off. And so as a result, she was probably offed by one of them. Now, how she was killed, nobody knows. Nobody really even knows if she was killed. She was never found. She just kind of disappeared. But it is thought that she was murdered, and thus she became a martyr. And as a martyr, she became the primary spirit, kind of like Jesus is for Christian faith. She became the martyr figure for the Church of the New God. In fact, I mentioned Christianity because there's a lot of parallels between the Church of the New God and Christianity. I think that was done on purpose because the similarities are pretty obvious. But rather than Jesus and dying on the cross and everything, Astrid died and became the martyr. And so the church kind of grew around that and her teachings, and it became just this massive explosion of a religion. The primary symbol for the church is the Ouroboros, although I believe there's other symbols that are talked about in here. The Ouroboros is the primary symbol, and the Ouroboros is the snake eating its own tail symbol. And that represents the cycle of life, the cycle of the souls being reincarnated over and over and over again, which is what this belief. Oh, there it is. Which is basically what the new God belief system talks about. And it also talks about, being pure in spirit. Otherwise, you will go to hell and be cleansed of your corruption in hell through torture and through pain, to pay for your sins while you are a bad person in the world. So it goes through and talks about all this stuff. And the Ouroboros is known as a serpent of truth. So it becomes, the big faith. So how to be a priest of the new God is talked about here. It also talks about how the church is established and structured around the four truths. The first truth being that the soul is eternal. The second truth is guarding against corruption. The third truth is no other gods but those mortals create, which is, again, this is just the genius of Diabolus. He's saying you don't worship other gods. It's just the new God. Everything else is made up by people. But the new God is real. Trust me. So yeah, people eat this shit up. And so that's the third tenet, or truth. And the last truth is the wheel of life must turn, which basically talks about, souls being reincarnated, making it a heresy to disrupt that process through means such as creating undead or creating clockworks. These are bad because that interrupts the cycle of life and the wheel of life. Talks about, in this little sidebar, talks about heresies, and there are 4 listed here. Incarnates, the oldest heresy of the cult, and one of the reasons the first accord was called began as a growing belief that Astrid was, in fact, the new god in physical form. Even King Roland secretly believed this to be true. However, the cult leaders saw this belief as being counter to the third truth, in that it imposed limitations on the divine, forcing the new god to conform to mortal belief rather than transcend it. Many members of the cult continue to hold this belief, and small cells gather to worship Astrid as the new god. Another heresy is the Legion of God. Members of the secret order known as the Legion of God hold that the third truth forbids the existence of all other religions, and that as such, it is the duty of the faithful to convert all people in the world in order to purify the divine. Although decried by the matriarch, the Legion has supporters throughout the cult. Then you have the Infernals, heretical cultists whose existence is little more than rumor. Members of the Infernals believe that the new god is merely a mask worn by their master, the devil. These guys actually have it right. Who plots to steer mortals from the old faith and make them his subjects. Of course, they don't know he's right, that they're right, but they're actually the ones who got it right. Bleak Ones, obsessed with the second truth. Bleak Ones argue that the mortal form was a prison created by the devil, and that the proper state of the soul is freedom from the flesh. Members of this unpopular group torture themselves with scourges and starvation, and many commit suicide to achieve the perfect state, if only for a time. All right, talks about the matriarch, who's the leader of the church. Talks about the 7 orders. So the church is divided up into 7 different organizations. You got the Keeper of Lore, you've got the Bearers of the Faith, you've got the Swords of Astrid, you got the Knights of the Temple, you got the Hammers of Justice, you have the Poor Brethren, and then you have the Peaceful Sisters. Each of them have different roles in the church, and they have different different things that they do in the world to further the faith. Then it talks about the temples and shrines, and it talks about the church is beset by enemies everywhere. Talks about what the holy days are, and then finally you get to how to be a priest of the new God. All right, chapter 5 is all about the dark gods, and the dark gods are kind kind of like the Norse gods, probably Norse gods plus. I don't know enough about European mythology to really say if this is purely based off of Norse gods or if there's a little bit more going on there. But I do know that Grimnir is based off of Odin, and then there are some other Norse gods that are pretty popular that are part of this pantheon, such as Frigg, Frigg, Hel, Tyr. So a bunch of those guys in here. It talks about the weird. Basically, the weird is that everybody has a destiny. The gods know what the destiny of each mortal is, but mortals don't know their own destiny. But they do know that they have a destiny, that they are meant to die in a specific way. And so basically the worshippers of the dark gods want to go out, in a blaze of glory, basically. So because they know, the gods know when it's their time. They don't know when it's their time. So, they're going to give it their all. Because if it's not their time to die, they're going to give it their all and be badasses. But if it's their time to die, it's their time to die. So, what the hell? They have nothing to lose. So it talks about that, talks about symbols and worshipers and all that stuff. And then you got the priests of the dark gods and how you can create one. Then you have chapter 6, which includes other faiths. Now, other faiths include the Dark Lady. The Dark Lady was one of the wives of the Witch King, and when she left the Witch King after the Witch King was killed, she actually escaped into hell, and then she managed to escape hell by making some deals with a few devils down there, and she created her own kingdom, which is called the Kingdom of Skulls. In the Kingdom of Skulls, she kind of set herself up as the god of that realm. And so the people actually worship her as a goddess known as the Dark Lady. And so she has gained power as a result of that. Now, of course, she's not as powerful as, say, the Old Faith, but she's still, more powerful than the average bear. So you got the Dark Lady. Then you have One-Eyed Pete, who was worshipped out in the ocean in the Pirate Isles and such. The Fey Lords and Ladies. Not exactly sure how this differs from the Old Faith, but I guess just beyond the Old Faith, the Fey Lords and Ladies are kind of venerated separately as the Fairy Queen, the Queen of Air and Darkness, Oberon, Puck, and so on and so forth. Then you got the Devil, which of course, should be part of the Old Faith, but he's just kind of his own thing. And devils really shouldn't be worshipped, but I guess there are some crazies out there that worship the devil. So there you go. Oceanus is the Lord of the Ocean. So again, ocean-going folks, people live out in the ocean, tend to venerate him as appropriate. Then you have spirits of the Woad. Now the Woad are these weird... It's this weird ancestry that exists. I really don't use them in my game, but they venerate spirits that take the shape of animals, and that's kind of detailed here a little bit. Some people worship genies, and really they should, because genies were the actual creators of the world. A lot of people believe a god is the creator. They created the people, they created the universe and the worlds, and that's actually what the genies did. I mean, the genies are kind of an offshoot of the demon lord, who was God at the time. So by proxy, they are the god's worker crew, I guess. But they're not actual gods themselves. They're just kind of powerful, creators that created the universe and the stars and the planets and everything else. But some people actually worship genies, and so through worship, some genies get more powerful. Then you got the Demon Lord. Now, the Demon Lord is the most confusing here, because out of all these religions, these are perpetuated through the world through religious practice, but the Demon Lord is the only actual entity that actually exists. But he is not well known, or it is not well known that it exists, because it doesn't give a fuck if people know about it. All it wants to do is reclaim its property, reabsorb everything so it can be whole again, because it knew it fucked up. The Demon Lord knows it fucked up. by splitting itself in two and creating the demiurge, because that set off this chain reaction that resulted in the demon lord going from everything down to this little teeny tiny entity that's, still greater than everything, but still much more depleted than he was, or it was once before. So now the demon lord's only reason for existence is to reclaim all that which was his, which means destroying everything that the genies had created and reabsorbing that energy back up. So that's the demon lord's purpose. This isn't an elevator pitch that a whole lot of people are going to buy. But there are some crazies out there that have learned about the demon lord or have guessed that it exists, or have learned that it exists through whatever means. There are hints that the demon lord exists. The immortals probably know about the demon lord. Genies definitely know about the demon lord. And there are probably other entities out there that, like the elder gods. The elder gods are, in my opinion, the elder gods are like the Cthulhu mythos. They're just elder beings that live out in the dark places between universes and between worlds. And my view of the elder gods is that these were the first things that the genies tried to create, and they didn't know how to create very well, so they really just were practicing. And the things that they created were so fucked up that they had to kind of just like toss them into like the darkest, deepest places of the universe, of the void, because this was practice. Oh, that turned out bad. Let's throw that over there. So that's what the elder gods are. They are the first creations of the genies, and they have a lot of power because these things were the first things that were born. And so they probably know that the demon lord exists as well. And so anybody that tries to interact with these elder gods through, forbidden magic or whatnot, can learn that the demon lord exists. But basically, the worship of the demon lord is probably not real popular, and probably not very large. But there is a group known as the Brothers of the Eternal Shadow. This cult does worship the demon lord. So it talks about that a little bit here. It talks about the different masks that the demon lord wears. So there are different groups that worship an entity that they believe to be the demon, believe to be something else, but it's actually the demon lord that they are worshiping. Revelers of the Glistening Prince. So the Glistening Prince is just a mask that the demon lord wears in this cult. Seekers of the Wandering Star. Again, this is kind of another mask worn by the demon lord, and actually in my game it's not. It is it's actually an elder god that, or an elder evil that is the Wandering Star in my campaign. But in this book anyway, it talks about the Wandering Star being an aspect of the demon lord. And then it talks about small gods. There can be hundreds or thousands of different religions out there. And so if you ever need to create a religion, you can do so. It talks about the ones that are probably already in existence, and then you can create your own. It talks about that, how to do that here as well. All right, so then we go into the appendices. So Appendix 1 talks about the magic of the gods. And I really dig this. It's only a pager, one page, but I love anything that adds rules to the game, and this adds rules to the game. So it talks about divine favor and divine wrath, which I love. I love that you can be this worshiper of an entity, and that as a result of doing certain things, you can gain divine favor, or if you fuck around enough, you're going to get the wrath of God coming down on you. And this talks about how you can incorporate that into your game. So divine favor talks about how if you go to, if you have zero corruption and you spend time at a holy site, the amount of time that you spend there allows you to roll a number of d20s. And if if two of the dice come up as a 20, then you gain divine favor. Now, to me, that's kind of, it's never going to happen. I mean, you can roll as many d20s as you want, as many times as you want, and get two 20s to come up, it's not going to happen that often. So if you actually want this to happen in your game, I would say, rather than if two dice come up as 20, I would just say if one of the die comes up as 20, then you gain divine favor. That's what I would do. But the book says, you roll all these d20s depending on how many you get. And if two of them come up, then you get the divine favor. So same thing with divine wrath. Basically, the GM keeps track of how often characters fuck up, and that's how many d20s that the GM rolls to determine if divine wrath is visited upon this character at some point. And again, if two dice come up as a 1 this time, then divine wrath comes down on the character. And again, I would change that to just 1 die coming up as a 1. And it talks about how the divine wrath can be manifested, and it talks about the benefits of divine favor, which can include information, healing, or fortune, or a quest being given to the benefactor. And of course, the victim of the divine wrath could have a plague visited upon them, insanity, pain, or they could be cursed. So anyway, this is one of my favorite parts of the book, page 39. It's good stuff. Then the next part of this appendix has new spells, so a ton of new spells. I'm not going to read through those, but they're all religion appropriate and fit into a bunch of different traditions. Then we have relics, and you can't have religions without relics. So this talks about several relics that are appropriate to various religions, which is pretty cool. Excuse me, and now I got the hiccups. Then we go into Appendix the second. And this is actually an adventure called False Wonders. It's a novice tier adventure, and I have to be honest with you, I haven't actually read it. So I don't know if it's any good. But it's good that they included an adventure in this book that is religion centric, so that you can kind of incorporate stuff from this book into an adventure. So that brings us to the end of the book. Of course, you have the index in the back and advertising for other products. So that's Uncertain Faith. Again, this is one of the core supplements. I think this is a really good one. I wish I have used it more. I am using it in my current campaign. And I will probably use it more going forward. But again, I definitely recommend this book if you have a campaign that is going to deal with any, one or more religions. This will definitely be your guide. And there's just a lot of good stuff in here, a lot of good spells. The rules I talked about for divine wrath and divine rewards. Again, that's thumbs up for me, but good book. I definitely recommend it, and go get it, go buy it. So with that, I will wrap up this video. Once again, I want to thank you all for viewing, and I'm not really sure what the next ones are going to be, but it will be here soon. So until then, hail to the Demon Lord. Catch you next time.